And I always say this, not because I want you to be nice to yourself, which I do, but that's not the main reason I don't want you to beat yourself up. I don't want you to beat yourself up because it's a waste of time and you don't have excess time and energy to spend. I want you to spend your time and energy with people you love, doing things that light you up and moving your business in a positive direction. That's where I want you to spend your time.
Hello, I'm your host, Evelyn Clark, and this is the 6-Star Business Podcast, where we have conversations with amazing, incredible people all about what it takes to be 6-star, going beyond the status quo, doing things differently, and how they bring purpose, love, and impact into their businesses every day. What a fun and delightful conversation this was with Amber Trueblood. Absolute gem. She's written a new book and talks about some of the material in that book in this conversation. And I tell you what, it's so good. I'm going to have her back and we're going to go further into it. But this one is amazing. Yes, it's all about the overwhelmed mum, but it's not just for women because it's for everybody. We to understand these things and how we interrelate and how we can relate better, how we can manage ourselves better to be more effective and productive in our businesses. There's a ton of gold in this, and I love what she's come up with, this concept that she talks about and goes through it in detail. She jam-packs a lot into this conversation, and Corey and I had a lot of fun with her. So I know you'll enjoy this one as well. This is Amber Trueblood.
Hello, here we are. It is another episode of 6-Star Business Podcast. I'm here today with my co-host, Corey Sebest. How are you doing, Corey?
Happy to be back and always curious to listen to another amazing story of an amazing lady tonight. My time.
Thank you. It's good to have you here. I know it's late in Germany. And our guest, I'm so excited because I've known her for a few years and I just love her and everything she does. And welcome. This is Amber Trueblood. And yeah, I'm just really happy to have you here.
Me too. I'm very excited and I'm glad that this timing worked out. We're all over the planet right now and I love it.
Yes, it's a cross-continent conversation. So and that's what I love about this. I love about the work that I do, and when I have these podcast conversations and get to meet people from all over the world, and it's a lot of fun. So this is about you, and you've already kind of given it away that we're in different continents. So that is a good segue into the first question that I like to ask my guests, which is, where are you in the world?
So I am on the west coast of the U.S. near San Diego.
Lovely. I love San Diego.
We've only been here about 3 years, but I am deeply sold on it. And I don't imagine I'll ever have a different home base.
Wow. That's so nice when you found your place. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. I've got a couple of questions for you. So could you share with the audience, first of all, who do you serve? How do you serve them? And what's something you like to do when you're not busy serving people?
Okay. So I love serving overwhelmed and anxious mothers. And I do that primarily through, inspiring stories, hopefully funny anecdotes, and most importantly, practical tools and strategies they can realistically use in their daily life. And that's what fires me up. And that's what gets me up in the mornings. What was the second part of the question? I already forgot it.
Well, it was, who do you serve? And you said that anxious, stressed out moms, and how do you serve them, which you kind of said all of that. But if you want to go into that with any more detail, feel free.
Well, I would say how I love doing it, primarily through books, because that's how I enjoy learning. And so writing books will always be part of how I want to impact the world. And then, of course, I realize fully that not everybody loves their information served up in quite that way. So even though I do try to write my books as more of a reference guide that you can pretty much just open to any page and learn something, get a piece of helpful information, no matter where you open the book, I know it's just still not for everybody. So I always make sure to have an audible version of all my books. And have courses that accompany them and coaching and retreats and things like that as well. So that's kind of a little bit more of the how I serve.
Wonderful. And what is something you like to do when you're not busy doing all of that?
I love going to my hip hop dance classes. That's what really fills me up. That's what is super fun. And it's the best way to get myself doing any sort of like exercise that, I can't, if I'm doing anything else, I will very quickly decide that I have other things I need to do instead and stop. Whereas if you put a good song on and I have a routine to dance, especially if the music is loud and it's a group of people, it's so much fun. And it really results in a lasting lift of my emotional well-being. And that's something I talk about a lot, is the difference between surface self-care, which is lovely, but maybe not lasting, and true self-care. And for me, because it's different for everyone, music and dancing is true self-care.
I love that. And I know Corey does as well. I know that, we both enjoy the dancing, but I love how you talk about this in terms of lifting of the energy and, it being a part of self-care, which I think I only started to really realize was important when I came into my probably early 40s. It's not been something that was taught to me or showed to me as being important prior to that. And I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of what you're going to share with us today, and especially how you got to understand all of this and how you got to serve stressed out, overwhelmed mums. There's a lot of stressed out, overwhelmed mums out there, and I can put my hand up that I have been that many times, and so I can relate. And your journey. I'd love to know about your journey, Amber. So could you share with us any and all of the journeys, or in whatever format you want to go into? But what's been the journey that you've been on that's brought you to where you are today and serving the people that you're serving today, doing what you're doing?
Okay. Well, first of all, everybody just got home from school. I have 4 boys. Right now they are 10, 12, 14, and 15 years old, and they all just ran down the driveway getting home from school. So there's a lot of yodeling and yelling happening right now in my kitchen. So hopefully very soon one of them will look at their phone and see the group text message that I sent. I am currently in a recording. So we'll see what happens. That'll be fun, but that's real life, right? And it's self-care communication is a big part of it, right? Communicating with those you live with and those you care about, and communicating with yourself and being really honest with yourself. So I would say my journey really began with, wanting to make a positive impact in people's lives always. I thought I was going to end up getting a PhD in clinical psychology and doing one-on-one therapy. And that's what I envisioned from fairly early on in my childhood even. And one of the things I learned about myself fairly quickly is that although I'm very persistent and I love school, I'm also impatient. And so the model of helping one person at a time did not appeal to me, especially with 4 small children in tow. Once I finished my degree and my hours and got my licensure, the logistics and finances involved with actually being able to see clients didn't make any sense. So my journey consisted of, having to kind of let go of that for a little bit and trust that somehow it would come full circle and I would figure out what my method for making that impact was going to be, which was really hard for me because, like many people, I don't like not knowing. And that was frustrating. And so for me at that time, there was some letting go before I realized, okay, I can institute my love of books and how much I enjoy writing, which for me is also a self-care activity, just the process of writing, and combine that with making an impact. And then to boot, the kind of the third part of that triangle is by that time I had researched, every self-care strategy and tactic I could find to help myself, and had tested a lot and then come up with a bunch of my own as well. And so one of the strategies that I use with my coaching clients and in my books is really to help mothers specifically get in tune with themselves, their own needs, because everybody has different values, perspectives, priorities, lifestyles, personality characteristics, children, their personalities. So, it's never a one size fits all thing. So I feel like it's been my job to come up with as many resources as possible and then help my reader or the client identify for themselves what's going to be most likely that you're going to use, right? Because I can give you 100 things. Like somebody could give me the most amazing recipes, like a whole book, really well organized. They'll say like, oh, this is only 5 steps, or this only takes 20 minutes, or this has only 5 ingredients. I will never cook them. I will never cook them. You could buy me every single ingredient and put it on the shelf and it just won't happen. So knowing yourself and what you're willing to do versus not do is a huge part of the equation. So my perspective is always, how can I help you understand your sense by, what's your anxiety style? What's your motivational type? What's your super sense? We were just talking about that as we were getting prepared for this. And what has worked for you in the past? So what questions can I ask you where you can realize, oh, yes, okay, I think this will help me. I always separate like preventative strategies versus in the moment strategies. So here's a set of strategies that I just want to institute every morning or once a week or once a month that will just help me as much as possible raise my level of, I call it your emotional bank account, right? So that you can endure and jump back up from those inevitable challenges and obstacles that are going to come up. And then there's the in the moment strategies like, holy moly, I just got this really disturbing email, or my kid came home and told me this frustrating thing, and I have to walk into a meeting, or I have to, go out to dinner with friends, or whatever it is. I have 30 seconds. I have 10 minutes. I have 30 minutes. Okay, then what strategies can I use given the amount of time I have at the moment?
I love it. You mentioned 4 boys. So at what point was that a part of your journey, like being a mum of 4 boys and being overwhelmed and stressed out? Is that what gave you the impetus to actually do all this research? Go down this path?
Okay. The short answer is yes. I always really thought I would help people via psychology. It's fascinating to me, human behavior and why we make the choices we make and how we think of ourselves, and, where our confidence and motivation and our attitude and perspective and communication comes from has always been fascinating, much more fascinating to me than like history or politics or, any number of things. So I knew I would prefer to do work in that arena. And then, once I had 2 children and then wanted to have a third and then wanted to have a fourth, and then all of a sudden had 4 children in just over 5 years, I realized, holy mackerel, what did I do? Am I prepared for this? I'm exhausted. I am overwhelmed. I am super happy, but I am super, isolated. I am super busy and nonstop, but I'm also bored. I am, these parallel but completely opposite feelings that I think are a large part of being a parent. You're like, I'm so happy. I love you so much. And I need a effing break. Like I need some time by myself. And this balance between, our expectations of ourselves and, the shame and judgment and guilt that can come with it. That's not serving anybody involved, but it's easier said than done often to move on from that and release it and have a little bit healthier mindset moving forward.
Wow, I love it. Amber, was there a moment on the journey where something happened and it made you go, wow, I now know that I need to help women? Like, was there a particular kind of pivotal time or situation that?
Right. When I knew that this was my audience, that's so interesting. I've never thought about it in that way. I think for me, it's who I tend to relate to most readily. And often I think I have insights that surprise them a little bit. So often when women will complain, about what's happening, some unfairness in their interpersonal relationship, for instance, I will often turn it on them a little. Yeah, I do it gently, I swear, like really gently. But say, what are you gaining from that? Do you secretly kind of love knowing where everything is and being right about XYZ? What are you getting from that? And let's take responsibility for that. And if you really do, like I had just written a blog article about, being the finder of all things in your house, which is a lot of, one of the typical complaints that a lot of moms have. Like, everybody comes to me, they can't find this, they can't find their backpack, they don't know where the tape is, and on and on and on. We love to complain about that. And I do too. I mean, I'm right there. I complain. And so, I've walked people through here. If you really want to not have that title anymore in your house, here's some ways that you can change what you're doing so that it doesn't happen. Because what you've probably done is taught everybody in your house that the quickest way they can find that tape is to find you and ask you, because you will immediately go tell them, or you'll stop what you're doing immediately and go find it for them. So we have trained everybody. It's not their fault. They're smart. They want the tape. They are making the decision based on what is the easiest, most direct route to getting the tape. And most of the time, that's find mom and ask her. And then we huff and puff and get all irritated about it when we have trained everybody to do exactly what they're doing. So a lot of, what I talk about is, I think, very empowering, because it's like, okay, ask yourself, do you really are you tired of doing that? Is it annoying? And do you find yourself becoming resentful as a result? If so, okay, here's what you can do about it, but first let's take responsibility for your part in it. Does that make sense?
As you're talking, I'm like, gosh, do I do that? Yeah, I must do that. Yep, I do that. Okay. So,
do you want me? I can walk you through like some of the steps that
all right, tell. Do that. Let's do it. Yep.
This is like baby steps. So if you find that if you're somebody who will stop what you're doing and get up and do it resentfully, then what I've found is I will first say, is this something, especially with my partner, I will say, do you need me to stop what I'm doing right now to go find it? Like, is this an emergency? If you say it with an attitude, it's not as effective, right? Just ask. Often you will find they say, oh no, it's not an emergency. You can find it later. Almost like 9 times out of 10. Now this is because for most women, by the time we ask somebody else, we've already looked all the obvious places. We've already done all of those things. So when I ask you, it means I really do want you to stop everything and go find it or do the thing right now. So we interpret that as you must have looked everywhere and this is an emergency and you really need it right now. And so that's the first like total miss, right, in communication. So you can ask that. You can say, oh, do you need me to stop recording this podcast and find your cell phone right now? Yes, I have a call. It's an emergency, whatever. Okay, great. I'll do that. 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be the case, right? And then, with kids, for instance, you would say, step 1 might be, where have you looked already? Actually, no, let's do it even before that. It's, you can tell them 3 places where they might be able to find it. It's either in the junk drawer in the kitchen, it's in the right-hand drawer in the white bathroom, or it's in the car, because you probably already know that it's for sure in the car, but give them 2 or 3 places. Okay. Just you're training them. Where do they look? The second level is like maybe you already do that. So the next level of like kind of giving them more independence is asking them themselves, where have you looked already? Where do you think might be a smart place to look? Because now you're making it more of a pain for them to ask you, right? They don't want to answer that question. They don't want to have to think because you've trained them. You can just tell them exactly where it is. And normally like exactly, right? Like it's behind the paper towels on the left-hand shelf of the second cupboard in the back, like behind the Windex. You tell them like literally exactly where it is because part of us is really proud that we know exactly where it is, right? So there's some ego involved. So you have to ask yourself, what's more important? And it might be like, I like that role. Okay, great. But then you can't be resentful about people asking you, right? So you can't have both, have your cake and eat it too. Pick one if you really are irritated about it. So then you can ask them, where have you looked? And then, and this is the hard one, you could say, I don't know. Don't know. And then here's bonus points. When you can't find something, ask them where it is. And I will tell you how easily the people in your house will say, I don't know. And I'm like, they have no problem just saying, I don't know to you when you ask. And so it gives you a little bit more resilience and motivation to also say, I don't know. I don't know. That's, good luck looking for that, If you've looked everywhere and it's an emergency and you need help, come back and let me know. How does that sound?
It's amazing, in particular for men like me, to listen to these stories. And one question which straight hit my head was, what is the most frustrating topic and challenge you have been coping by helping women in regards to family and probably their husbands or partners they came up with?
Yeah. So one of the most challenging things I think is that, and this is obviously, I'm talking stereotypical. So this is not every couple. This is not every woman, every man. And so use it, take it in, however it's useful to you. But a lot of women tend to be more auditory related and men tend to be more visual, right? Super generalization here. Because of that, we tend to talk more about our problems and what we're frustrated with and what the solutions might be, right? We want to talk it through. Men want to not talk it through and skip to the action part. So a lot of women will, if they are unhappy about something in their relationship or in their life, want to talk about it. But if you were deaf, if you could not hear and you just watched them, you would think that they were happy and everything was fine because they are smiling. They are taking the kids to school. They are getting dressed in the morning and doing all of their daily things. They're going to lunch with friends. They're going about their life. Even if they're saying to you, I can't do this anymore. I am really unhappy. We have to change something. This is not working for me. I don't know how long I can keep this up. Those are the words. But women will keep doing all of the things they feel responsible for the most part, as a mom and as a person in the household who has to take up the trash and make dinner. So men will say, okay, well, you look happy. You're doing all of these things. So think of the opposite of that. If a woman was laying in bed, couldn't get out of her pajamas, couldn't take the kids to school, in tears, not wearing any makeup, not going outside, and saying, I'm fine. I'm totally happy. Everything's fine. The man would be like, clearly you're not fine. Something is majorly wrong. You're not okay. You're not eating. You're not sleeping. You're not doing the things you normally love. You're not going to dance class anymore. Something's wrong, right? Because they're watching your actions, right? So if your actions don't align with your words, and for women, this is often the case, then just ask yourself, if my husband was deaf, what would he see? What would I be communicating to him with my behavior and actions? I might be really grouchy and crabby and angry and crying with him, but with everybody else in my life, I seem fine. I'm happy. I'm doing things. I'm caring about my business, because that's how women function. Whereas if a woman reaches out to her friend and says, hey, if I called you, Aveline, and I said, I'm not okay. Like, I need help. I am really I'm on my last string right now. And emotionally, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm really, really a mess. We would immediately alarms go off, sirens blare. She just called out for help and I'm hearing her, Whereas, and I don't know if you guys have heard this, but a lot of couples that you meet that are going through a divorce or are newly divorced will say that the woman was unhappy for a long time trying to communicate her needs. And then when her emotional bank account, which I mentioned earlier, reaches zero, it's done. The account's closed. You are over it. You file for divorce, you leave, and the husband is like, hey, let's work on this. Are you kidding me? Let's go to therapy. Let's do something. And she's like, too little, too late. If I had heard you say those words and really mean it 5 years ago, 3 years ago, then maybe, but I am done. I am spent. I'm exhausted. So one of the biggest challenges, I think, is matching our actions to our words and understanding that it's not because the other partner doesn't care. It's just they communicate so differently. And if you understand what they're seeing, then you might have a little bit more compassion for why they don't seem to be responding in the way that you're happy about. And so I will often recommend to women who are, frustrated in a significant area of their life and say, are your actions matching your words? And if not, then, how can you align them a little bit more and maybe say less and do more just for the sake of communicating your true feelings a little bit more effectively?
Wow. I'm sure our listeners have heard that and can all relate in some part. And I love what you said about the emotional bank account, and I want to get to that in a little bit. But the other thing that dawned on me as you were going through that scenario and the dynamic was, well, this is so relevant for business. And what about business partnerships where there's a male and a female? I've been in business partnerships where with a man, and and it's been like you said, this bank account's going down. How does a female in a business partnership demonstrate physically her needs when, say, the business is all conducted online?
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, I might have to think on that for a moment, because I do think that it's much more difficult, obviously. And I think you can still show with actions. For instance, if you've been saying, hey, we need a different marketing person, I'm not happy with what's happening. Maybe instead of talking about that, you go ahead and start interviewing new marketing people, taking action, moving forward. I think in any direction that you can use action over words, I think that would be impactful.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really insightful. I'm going to think more about that after this call, and it's not about now, but it's also, I want to reflect on scenarios that I've had in the past and ask, how could have I done that differently? Or if I had Amber's advice back then, what could have I done with that to create a better outcome? I love the introspection, and it's all about asking quality questions of ourselves, right? And effectively, that's what you're empowering women to do, to ask quality questions of themselves, to understand themselves first, which I love.
And especially I feel compelled to say that this is not with the intent of giving you another excuse to beat yourself up, right? And I always say this, not because I want you to be nice to yourself, which I do, but that's not the main reason I don't want you to beat yourself up. I don't want you to beat yourself up because it's a waste of time and you don't have excess time and energy to spend. I want you to spend your time and energy with people you love, doing things that light you up and moving your business in a positive direction. That's where I want you to spend your time. So I will often say that, self blame and guilt and maybe not shame, is that's a deeper kind of a different emotion, but this self-judgment, a lot of people see that as kind of like honorable or something that's like saying that you're such this deep, sensitive person. And I would argue that it's really selfish because you're just focusing on yourself even more, and it's not productive. You're not helping your loved ones. You're not helping your business, and you're not helping yourself emotionally or mentally to sit there and say self-judgment. Now, deciding that is very different from actually being able to let go and release that. That's the second part. But if there's a part of you that thinks you deserve self-punishment, you're punishing yourself by judging yourself and you're going to just wallow in it, then I'd like to counter that with saying that's actually being more selfish and just extending the like, oh, woe is me. Look at all these problems I've made for myself. It's terrible. Yes, it is. Okay. So if you really feel that upset about it, then choosing something different means finding a way to release it in the healthiest manner possible and seeking the tools to do that so that you can start focusing on, being more productive, like I said, either in your personal life or in your business or both, because they're intermingled, right?
I love this. Obviously, it's relevant to me. Now, what would you say to our male listeners? Because there's a lot of male listeners of this podcast and they're all business owners. How do you, if you got any kind of insights for them? Because, No, I'd love to hear about your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned, go ahead.
Yes.
Well, I mentioned a few things. I mentioned super senses and I mentioned motivational types and I mentioned anxiety styles. I'd love to hop into that a little bit because I think that anxiety styles works regardless of gender, regardless of sex, regardless of height or any other, identifiers. And it's a tool that we can use to have some insight to our own behavior, and which I believe elicits some compassion and self-understanding, and then some insight into other behaviors. So there are 5 anxiety styles. This is the framework I use in the book that is coming out that is called The Unflustered Mom. However, because most of the stories in it are mom related and that's my key audience, but the styles are not gender specific at all. So the 5 are lover, fighter, executive, visionary, and dynamo. And they're based loosely on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is like the 1941 psychology paper that a lot of people, if you ever took Psych 101, you learned about it. And I've modernized it a little bit. And so if you kind of take that idea that people have different fundamental needs that they're more attuned to. Now, it's not a hierarchy in this framework. And you combine that with have you ever heard of the framework, the five love languages, where we all have different ways that we perceive and receive and give love. And the understanding is that if I know my way of giving love is to use words of affirmation and yours is quality time. Meanwhile, I'm all the time telling you, oh my gosh, Evelyn, you're so amazing. I appreciate you. Like, look at what an incredible mom you are. Like, thank you so much for dinner tonight. Like, this was amazing. And your love is wanting to spend quality time with me, and you're constantly trying to make dates with me, and I'm constantly telling you how great you are. And we're both giving love in the way that we want to receive it. And so similarly, anxiety styles are the same way. Once you can understand like what is compelling me most. So for instance, with lovers, it's all about your interpersonal relationships and feeling wanted, feeling loved, feeling belonging with the people in your life. That is hands down most important. Now, most moms especially will say, oh yeah, that's me. That's me. A lot will say that. So this is kind of that on steroids, right? Like one step further. So you might know you are a lover anxiety style if you see that a bunch of your friends or colleagues have gotten together, right? You see on Facebook, it comes up, everybody got together and they didn't invite you. And not only might you have that normal, like, what? That's weird, or disappointment or sadness, but your mind spirals to the next level. Like, oh my gosh, was Corey like upset at me? Did I say something during that podcast to upset him? Did I say something disrespectful? Oh my gosh, like, are they mad at me? Like, and you just can't get out of that loop, and it just hurts you to your core. So people who are lovers, for instance, their main connection, their main driver in everything they do in their lives is about feeling wanted, feeling loved, feeling connected to people in their lives. And so each of these has different contributing factors, different things that are going to trigger you. For instance, your partner saying, hey, I have to go to Germany for a few weeks. I don't know when I'm going to be home. Good luck. I'll let you know, or I can't talk for the next couple of days. Like, that would be really, really incredibly difficult for a lover, right? So there's certain things that are going to trigger you. And then there's certain things that are your life lesson, which is feeling loved, feeling belonging, feeling connection, feeling value, right? Feeling like you are a valuable, worthy person, regardless of the words or actions of others. Like, that's where we're looking to get. Now, people and your loved ones are always going to be the most important thing to you, because that's great. And you have certain superpowers also that are aligned with that. So how do we acknowledge and celebrate where this is benefiting your life and all the amazing things that you can do and the traits that you've developed because of this priority, right? So probably when you're present with people, you're really present with people. You're really paying attention to them. They feel heard. They feel seen. They feel connected to you, right? So you have all these superpowers as well. And so each one is different. I'm happy to go through each one a little bit, but there's a quiz too. So if you go to flourishquiz.com, you can find out your own anxiety style. And then I have all kinds of bonuses and guided meditations that are specific to each one and whatnot. So, but I can tell you, if you want to pick one, I can tell you about each one of them. Should I go over the other ones? Okay. So tell me if you want to hear about fighter, executive, visionary, or dynamo.
He said all of them.
All of them. Okay. All right. So let's go with, let's do fighter next. So the fighter is somebody, and this was not reflected in Maslow's hierarchy. This was a newer one. This was the one that isn't in that hierarchy. And so fighters tend to, I'll start with this. You might know you're a fighter if a lot of loved ones in your life have said, why are you even getting involved in that? That doesn't have anything to do with you. What are you doing? I see nodding. Okay. So these are people that when there's an injustice, when there's an unfairness, when there's a bullying situation, when there's a situation where just something is not right. It's not okay that this happened. You are moving toward that conflict. You are moving toward that challenge, toward that chaos, toward that trauma. Because you can't not, if you see something happening that's not right, your instinct is to move toward it, even if your bandwidth is tiny, even if you're already exhausted and spent. And often this is because in your childhood, you had a lot of tumult, you had a lot of chaos maybe, or trauma. And the people who were supposed to be there for you to protect and guide you through it weren't. So you do that for others, which is beautiful, right? It can be this amazing quality. It can also mean you have a lot of trauma, or you not draw a lot, but you move toward a lot of chaos in your life, right? So you might be somebody who's like constantly having financial trouble, like because you're maybe taking risks that you otherwise wouldn't have. And part of you is really accustomed to being in turmoil, right? And when things are calm, it could be very unsettling. Even though on one side, you want financial stability, like you want a healthy relationship, you want to be physically healthy, but also it feels really uncomfortable because part of you is always physiologically, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for just something to go wrong, right? So it's almost easier to have it be going wrong right now and know what you're dealing with than to have everything smooth and easy and not know when it's going to end. And that's scary. So the fighters are all about, like, what triggers them is the opposite of what triggers a lot of people. What triggers them is like, everything's cool. Everything's going really well. And you're like, I don't know. I don't trust this. And it can be really deeply unsettling. One of the women that I interviewed for the book, who's a fighter, she had dinner with some new girlfriends, like, some were new and some were older girlfriends that she'd had for some time. And they had this just like lovely dinner and had a great time. And like, she said she went home and was physically sick to her stomach because it was almost like a too good to be true situation. Like, I don't deserve this. And it's not on a conscious level, right? It's on this deep, visceral, physical level. And so being conscious of that is kind of the lesson, the main goal for fighters is, can I be in charge of where I want chaos in my life and challenge, and where I don't? Maybe I am sick of dating these jerks or these terrible women, and I want to I want to be in a healthy relationship, and I'm ready for that. I'm exhausted from not having that. So I want to be in a healthy, happy relationship. But part of me still likes that. I still want to fight a little bit. So maybe I decide I want to start running marathons, and I'm going to start training for marathons, or I want to learn a new language, or I want to go to another country where I don't speak the language and just figure shit out, like, where can I purposefully have challenge in my life to fulfill that kind of adrenaline rush a little bit? And where can I get more and more accustomed to ease, to joy, to safety, and then in the book for each type, I have very specific strategies they can choose from for both in the moment, reducing stress and anxiety, and then for preventative.
I actually saw myself.
Do you have any questions about the fighter? Do either of you know any?
In years gone past, I really do relate. And then I thought to myself, I had to ask you, do you change? Obviously you change, or can you have more than one style at the same time? Like, do you have a dominant style and maybe a couple of smaller ones or something like that, similar to love languages?
For sure. The way I have the quiz set up right now, I think it only tells you your top one, but I have a secondary quiz that can give you the percentages. So you might have two that are just neck and neck, right? And you're like a little bit lover and a little bit executive, or, and I also go into I go into detail of, the relationships between each individual pair, right? So, and even if you have two, say, lovers together, there are places in your life where that's going to be fabulous. And then there are places like, okay, well, what are y'all not doing? Where are the possible holes in that when you have two lovers or two fighters or two executives? And then when you are different, where are there places where you can connect? So a lot of these, for instance, lovers tend to make decisions from their heart or from their gut, more so than, from their brain and logical decisions, right? They tend to be more in the present moment than, or even in the past than in the future, right? And fighters also tend to make decisions more from their gut than their head. So that's a way that they can connect, right? They also tend to be more in the present moment and in the past. But if you're a dynamo, which I can talk about next, dynamos, and I'm going to say we, because I'm a dynamo, tend to be more in our heads, planning and in the future, right? Not in the present moment at all. So if I'm married to a lover, that's a benefit for me because he can help me like really be in the present moment. And my husband does that, he'll say, oh my gosh, the weather's beautiful. Let's go. Let's hop in the car. We're going to go down to the beach for the sunset. And my initial response is like, no, I'm doing this. And I am almost always very, very happy when I take a breath, say, okay, actually that makes a lot of sense. I have to make it make sense in my brain first. And then, I press pause on whatever I'm doing and we go get in the car and we go down to the beach and it's lovely. But if I were together with another dynamo, I don't know that would happen, because we would both just be like achievement, task, get it done, doing, going. And we have kind of this achievement junkie mentality where our worthiness and our value is very, very interrelated with this sense of achievement, this sense of accomplishment, the sense of acknowledgement for our value comes from like, do I feel like, I'm doing enough and I'm doing the right things and are people happy about it? And do they like it? And, how many 5-star ratings, how many 6-star ratings do I have, And so, the goals with dynamos are to, how do I connect in the present moment more often? How do I slow down, actually enjoy and celebrate those wins? I just did all this work. Did I even take 5 seconds enjoying the last win before I'm planning out the next one? You hit your goal of whatever, 500, and immediately, what can I do to get to 1,000? Oh, maybe 10,000. And you just are not really very accustomed to slowing down and taking that time and giving the attention to your wins to celebrate them and enjoy them.
Can you relate to
that? So that's the dynamo. We kind of slipped in there.
I can. I just find it so fascinating that how did you gain all these knowledge and wisdom about these different types? I mean, you must have been interviewing and dealing with thousands of desperate housewives, women, whatever. I mean, or is it just purely coming through reading books and to update your knowledge and then it came by the time? Because for me, as you said, you're more into writing books to give guidance to women, but you're as well a coach. But listening to you, you're much more than that. You're a therapist, you're a psychologist, a combination of that in a very nice, approachable way, not this typical stiff PhD psychologist, where you sit there and lay on the sofa and then you start talking and then you feel, okay, I talked and I didn't gain anything out of it. And you have a very pragmatic approach and you literally take the anecdotes out of life. So everybody can resonate to it. So people you are tuning very quickly into your clients and clients can tune in very quickly into the situation due to the anecdotes you are telling. So it's a perfect combination. I'm just amazed. Wow. Yeah.
Well, I just think that was the best marketing. That was the best ad for what I do ever. I mean, I need that on. I'm just going to put that on my YouTube page and be like, that was the best promotion ever. That was beautiful. Well, thank you. I am glad that you say that because it really is my intention to connect with people in a way that is as helpful and impactful as possible. And being, real and authentic and also hopefully, as pragmatic as possible is always my goal. To answer your question then about the genesis of this idea and this framework, I love to learn, and I read probably an average of maybe a book a week. So I go through books pretty quickly. And so I've always got one on Audible that's going. I've got one real book, whatever physical book that's going. And then I'm also reading books to the kids, but those are generally science fiction books. So I don't know how much I learned from those. But I also am an avid meditator. So for about the past 10 years or so, I meditate every morning and every night. And this is one of the strategies that's especially impactful for dynamos, because we are up in our heads and we're going, spinning. And it's not necessarily in our nature to slow down and be quiet and not be pushing and doing and thinking and planning constantly. And so it's hardest for us to do that. But I would argue we get the most benefits from it. And so for me, when I started to meditate regularly, it quickly became a non-negotiable because the benefits were so obvious and powerful for me. And in March of 2020, I was doing a morning meditation. And I was actually in my office, and I was sleeping in my office at the time. I feel like over COVID, we had musical beds. Like we all just were like, I'm not sleeping well over here. And so we would just like sleep in different rooms. And so I don't remember what was happening, or if Jamie was sick or something was up, and I was sleeping in my office. And I woke up and I did my meditation, and the idea for this framework came as what I call a download. It's like an inspiration where I grabbed my journal and I just started writing, and all of these things came together. Now this was my second book, so I knew about writing a proposal and writing outlines. So I started putting it into a book proposal, which I rewrote, I think 3 separate times. And a book proposal is I'm trying to remember how many, like a 70-page document. It's quite a hefty thing. So at first I was calling them fear languages, and then I started and then I said, well, I don't want to write a book where it's called fear, where I write the word fear 80,000 times, that's not going to make anybody feel calm. And so went through quite a bit of iteration, as I developed the thinking. And then fighter, I had a different 5th one that just wasn't clicking. And so then maybe 9 months later, I realized, this was the missing link in the 5. So that is how it came about. And it's funny, Corey, that you said, did you interview thousands of people? Because when I was first sharing this idea with some of my friends and family, one of my friends she's not a PhD level, but she's a university professor. And she said, well, you can't write a book like this. You have to go do a bunch of research and interview thousands of people and see if your ideas are in fact true, mathematically speaking, statistically speaking. And I pondered that. And then I said to myself, who is impatient, that, I think that this can help a lot of people, regardless. It's not going to detriment anybody's life. It's not going to hurt anybody's life. So if it resonates and the strategies I share are kind and compassionate and helpful and not cost, they're all free. None of them are, I'm not charging anything for them. I'm not recommending people go do anything crazy. I don't want to wait 6 years to write this book. I have 3 other books already after that in my mind. I can't wait 6 years for this one. It's not going to happen. And so I just took her off my mailing list of people that I was talking to about the book and kept going. So, and what I've found is that the reaction that I've had in the past 3 years, every time I talk about this book, is similar to yours, is that it really resonates with people, and they find they have a little bit more compassion for why they are how they are. And then they are able to use the communication skills to communicate their needs a little bit more effectively with the people in their lives, which helps them get more of what they need emotionally in their relationships, which I think is huge. So I feel like I made a good decision.
I know you did. And I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to it coming out. When is it being published?
June 6th.
Right. Very exciting. Well, we'll have the details for the book on the page, on the podcast page below this. So wherever you're listening or watching, there'll be the links for you to check out Amber's book and the quiz. I just love it. I mean, we could talk for like 3 hours on this. I can see that. And it's not just stressed out mums. These styles, the anxiety styles, you call them. I mean, these yes. are universal.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, my goal from a book writing perspective is to have the unflustered dad, the unflustered entrepreneur, the unflustered teen, the unflustered, because really it's just about changing out the stories, the examples, and then having strategies that might be shifted a little bit more according to age or, job type and things like that.
Wonderful. And I love the term unflustered, right? It's something we aspire to, right? How lovely to have a day when we're unflustered and we're in flow.
Right. Right. Exactly. And what I love about it is that there are real life things that you can do that don't take a bunch of time. They don't take a bunch of money. They don't take a bunch of calories, and they can have long lasting effects. And it's kind of like, self-care got this term, and we mentioned this at the beginning, I think, it was something that I think a lot of people picture, manicures and massages and vacations and like luxurious things. And I wish we maybe just would make up a new word even for it, because I talk a lot about the difference between surface self-care and true self-care, because what I want for people is for them to identify true self-care in their lives and take it as a responsibility instead of a luxury, because I think that it will really benefit everybody in their lives. And it's a myth that it takes a bunch of time or a bunch of money or a bunch of resources to do it. It's about just taking responsibility and deciding that it's more important to you than a lot of other things in your life you might be doing that are not serving you emotionally. Like I do want to say, like, a lot of people will come to me and say, I'm not sleeping well at all. I can't fall asleep at night. Oh, my brain is just going. And I'll ask, what are you doing the last 20 minutes before you go to sleep? So maybe I'll ask you, what do you do the last 20 minutes before you go to sleep? Keep it PG.
I watch.
You watch?
Yeah. My conspiracy channels or something else.
Got it. Okay. Evelyn?
Yeah, no, I'm a reader, or I'll do a meditation, like a sleep one. Yeah. And about a year ago, I made a commitment to not look at social media in the evening.
Yeah, that's genius. So there's so many things. I have a little, like a $97 program called Outsmart Overwhelm that teaches a morning practice and a nighttime practice and some other things. And the nighttime, there's very simple things you can do at night to ground yourself, have a mindfulness practice. It could be reading, it could be journaling, it could be stretching, it could be meditating, could be a breathing exercise, a grounding practice. So something with water, drinking water, taking a bath, taking a shower, walking outside barefoot, breathing some fresh air, just getting some like nature, around you. And then some sort of psychologically grounding practice. So this could be, saying three things you're grateful for. And I always recommend very small and specific, because a lot of people will say, oh, I'm grateful for my health and my family and my kids and my house and blah, 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 and then go to bed. And you didn't even pay attention to what you were saying. Did you really feel any sense of gratitude as you did that? Because the benefits of gratitude, of a gratitude practice, because that's like the new meditation, right? Is like a gratitude practice. It's cool now. It's cool now because it can be really impactful. And I don't want to say only if, but especially if you can do it in such a way that actually elicits feelings of gratitude, like where you really get to a space where you're just in awe of something. And one of the hacks, one of the shortcut ways to do that is hone in on something really specific. Like, I'm so grateful that my son's second grade teacher, took the time after school today to walk over to him and bend down and give him props on his presentation. Like, that meant so much to him. He thinks the world of her. And I'm so grateful for her that she did that. Man, that zoned me in on something so specific that it really got the emotion there. Than if I just said, I'm grateful for Miss Tuttle, and moved on. I don't even know if there was a question. I just went on and on just now.
And I love that you just go on. And I'm enthralled. I'm conscious of the time. We're about to clock an hour, which is fine. But I have a couple more questions for you, Amber. And hopefully our listeners are loving this, right? And the male business owners, this is not about just for women. This is for everyone. And this is all about being responsible and being a better human and living a life of meaning and joy. And I don't think you can fully live a life of meaning and joy all the time unless you actually do the things that Amber's talking about. Ask yourself the questions, do the introspection, and do the things that help to ground you, make you calm, and all of these things. And so it's so important. For me, being 6-star, like we talk about 6-star business, it's about the individual that comes to the business. It's not the business being 6-star that is separate from the owner, right? And a lot of our listeners are service-based entrepreneurs, or they've got small businesses. So their business is a reflection of them. So one thing that I know is how important it is for us to be, look in and do the self-care and do the work. So everything you're talking about is 100% relevant to our audience and to the notion of being 6-star. I'd love to know your thoughts on 6-star, what it means to you, and anything else that that's come up as a result of this conversation.
Okay. Well, how I feel pulled to answer this question is an example of another question that came to me. Somebody asked me once, because I talk a lot about overwhelm, and they said just very simply, how do you define overwhelm? And I said that it is the degree, in my mind, it is the degree to which your time, your money, your energy, your resources, and your attention are aligned with what's really important to you. Has nothing to do with how many tasks are on your list, how many hours you slept, how many things you have left to do, how many businesses you own, how many kids you have. It's how do you spend your time, money, attention, resources, and focus, and are they aligned with what's really important to you? Because when they are really, really aligned, you are energized. You are excited. You might be busy. You might be exhausted at the end of the day, but you're exhausted with a smile on your face, right? Which is way different, which is so different from exhausted and spent and saying, what did I even do today? What did I even do today that was important for me? I put everybody's priorities above my own. I did not meet my own needs, whether that's physical. Did I eat well? Did I eat lunch today? Did I get up from my desk and move my body at all? Did I breathe any fresh air today? Did I do the things that fill me up? So to me, overwhelm is how aligned are you with what's truly important to you? And so to me, in a way to answer your question, 6 stars is when your time, money, energy, resources, and attention are totally aligned with what's most important to you at this moment in time, at this place in your life.
I love that. I love that so much, Amber. Thank you. Yeah, wow. There's so much there. Corey, have you got any other comments or questions for Amber?
I got one final question. So, the people you have been coaching, or the women who have read your book and sent you feedback, an email, whatever, how would they describe your genius? So what literally blew them away after going either through your coaching program, the online programs, or reading your book? So what is a kind of a common denominator of feedbacks from those individuals?
Okay. So I think what the most common denominator would be is, one of them said it like this. She said, it's like working with somebody who has a Rolodex of answers. So meaning, if you give me, okay, this is my issue. These are my goals. This is what I've tried before. This is what's not working. I will very often have a couple follow-up questions and then a recommended practice that, hopefully will resonate, and that will be one that you'll actually try and do. So I'm a collector of strategies and tools and tactics. And my favorite thing is to, find the ones that are going to fit your issue at this point in time. The other common factor would be that I talk a lot about books, and I recommend books to everybody. And it's very difficult to have any conversation with me over 5 minutes, even if you're a Uber driver or I'm in line next to you at a shop, that I will not recommend a book. And sometimes I really have to hold myself back because I want to do it so badly, because I love books and I want everybody to love them. And I want you to learn what I learned. And so that's what I love to talk about as well.
That's beautiful. I could just imagine you at the, Whole Foods market or the shop in the checkout line, just chatting away to someone and giving them some advice or a book name, and it'll change their life. So you're always giving, right? You're creating an impact, and you're on purpose. You are living and breathing 6-star. You know that, Amber? You are.
Oh, so sweet. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right. Last question or thing before we say goodbye. Do you have any final tidbit or piece of advice for our listeners that they can, just to add to the truckload?
400 pieces.
Okay. Can you just spin the wheel and just let it stop on just one and just choose the one?
Oh, it's so hard for me. That is really tough for me. Okay. I'm going to give a crowd favorite. How about that? I'll give a crowd favorite. So when you have a very short period of time and you need to reset your nervous system because you're spiraling on some sort of negative issue that you want to get out of, I recommend a cross-lateral movement. And what this serves to do, I'm also a neuroscience geek. So this serves to facilitate communication between your right and left hemispheres. So in essence, it helps kind of stabilize the brain activity that's happening in your mind at the time. And so the simplest one, and I'll describe this for people who aren't watching. So you're going to take, say, your left hand and have it be flat like a pancake, and then put your right hand in like a karate chop. And I want you to chop across it, only moving your top hand, only moving your right hand 6 times really very quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you're going to reverse it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you want to make sure to not just move your dominant hand. You're moving the top hand only. And you're doing it as quickly as possible without holding your breath, right? And you're doing 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And for most people, now it's 6 and not 4 or 8, because if you're musically inclined, it might be very easy for you to still ruminate on whatever's bothering you, because you can do 8s in your head, no problem, right? And you're used to that. So you want to use a number that really takes concentration. So it takes your mind off the task at hand, and you're doing a movement that crosses the midline of your body. And that's what makes it cross lateral. It's the lateral line in your body. So you can do this through, that's why they say for brain development, right? Crawling is so important for babies, and why you're not supposed to, if you're going for a walk, preferably you don't have something in your hand. So you're only moving one hand and you're moving both instead. So all of these are cross lateral movements. This is just a more purposeful one, and one you can do still sitting down. You could do right before a meeting. I used this. I had one of my first big live, like Facebook, talks, and that I was doing, somebody else was hosting to their audience, and I was very excited. And Jamie had taken all the boys, and everything was quiet, and I had a few minutes. And so I went across the hallway to use the restroom before I came back. And, I don't know if you're like me, but in the last couple of years, several things have broken in our house, and we didn't fix them right away. So the doorknob to that bathroom had broken off, right? Corey already knows where this is going. And so we had been using a disposable, like a razor, without the razor on, and it fit in there just perfectly. So we had been using that to open the door, and that broke. So I got myself locked in the bathroom, and it was literally minutes before I was supposed to go live. So I crank open the window. Luckily, it's on the first floor. I crawl out of the window. I run around the outside of the house. Luckily, the front door wasn't locked. I come in, I sit down, I go live, and it's like 30 seconds. And I do the cross lateral movements, because in my head, I've got the adrenaline pumping. My cortisol levels are through the roof. I'm frustrated myself. I half want to laugh. Oh, and by the way, at the same time, our smoke alarm had started going off in the living room. So I'm like, oh my gosh, are they going to be hearing an alarm going the whole time? I did the cross lateral movements, and people often ask me, well, how long do you have to do it for? And after you try it the first time, you don't even have to ask yourself, because it only takes about 30 seconds, and you'll notice in your body, it relaxing, releasing that tension. You still remember that you got locked in the bathroom, but it's not this visceral thing that's taking over and you're spiraling on and on about it. And then you can focus authentically on the task at hand, instead of just pretending you're not still really upset about whatever just happened. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that story, my God, the fact that you got back within 30 seconds to go and got on live, I was like, that's medal winning. That's amazing. And I've been in those situations, with the completely out of this world, cortisol pumping, and now you've just given a strategy. And we all have those things and those moments. Amber, I just want to thank you.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
For business owners too, I would challenge anybody that when you come into a meeting, say in person or online, you don't know what they all just stepped out from, what email they just opened, what meeting they just got off of, what call they just ended, what fight they just had with their partner. And so doing something like that at the beginning of a meeting, if you're up for it, can really help people. And also you're giving them skills that they can learn in all kinds of other places. And sometimes that is more effective than, let's do 3 deep breaths, or let's focus on our feet, because it's really easy to keep being angry. So I love neurohacks for that reason, is you don't have to logic your way into it. It happens whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Your control brain isn't in charge. It's just going to work naturally.
Yeah, you circumvent. You don't need the to understand it. You're not trying to logic your way through it.
Yeah. So important. Amber, wonderful stuff. I'm so excited. I can't wait for the book. And Corey, have you got anything you want to say as we say goodbye to Amber? Any thoughts?
No, actually, just I hope that your future clients and the readers, will have fun. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And looking forward to hear more in the future.
I'm looking forward to getting a clip of your beautiful, statements about my work, because I'm gonna use that. It was lovely. Well, and I think it's true, because a lot of people here, I mean, probably when you heard, we're having this woman to come on, she's a mom of 4, she's going to talk about stress and anxious moms. I'm guessing that it went down differently than you expected.
I deliberately didn't tell him that it was about stressed and anxious mums, because I thought he might decide to just go to sleep and not turn up for it.
Well, I'm so glad that didn't happen. So.
Me too, because I know that he's got a lot from it already. I can tell. And so have I. And so I know have all the listeners when this goes live. Thanks, Amber. You're an absolute gem. Okay.
Cheers.